everybody. We are live, and we have a great guest of many talents on. Hey, Matt, how you doing, buddy? This is another great scoop. Absolutely, he has done many things: movies, TV, shorts, writer, artist, some special effects work. But most people, horror fans, will most notably recognize him as Michael McCleary from the classic 1982 film The Beast Within. So let's bring out Paul Clemens.
Hey there.
How you doing, Paul?
Quite well. Thank you.
Good. We were talking a little backstage, and I said usually the first question I ask everyone I have on here is something I figured I did not have to ask you, and that is, have you always been a huge horror fan?
Yep. Ever since I had ever since I had the hell scared out of me as a little kid, watching The House on Haunted Hill on TV, the original, not the remake, which I like, but I'm talking about the original.
Yeah.
William Castle, black and white, scared the hell out of me. I was like 4 years old, 5 years old, and that did the trick.
So, what got you into how far along in your life did it take you to realize that you wanted to act? Because I know your mother was an actress, and she actually had a role in The Sound of Music.
She sure
and
did.
Many things. I mean, it's too many to even list, but I'm guessing it was you were born into it and just had that love from the beginning.
The family business, you could say. became
exactly.
Yeah. My two biggest acting inspirations earlier on, I would have to say, were my mother, followed by Lon Chaney Sr.
Okay.
For a while, I thought I wanted to get into makeup, but acting as well. I couldn't make up my mind between acting, makeup, acting. So, why not do both? And as a stage actor, you do both. You often do your own makeup. So, interestingly, I have a beautiful 3-page handwritten letter from Ellen Burstyn to me.
One of my favorite actresses.
Mine too. And
right.
the letter, part of the letter was about the inspiration my mother was to her in her own acting, and how she found watching my mother's work showed her the kind of character arc, the progression of character that was possible within the scope of a single role, a single film. And then she went on to discuss The Exorcist and what The Exorcist meant to her philosophically. It was a beautiful letter, and it was recently published in a gorgeous book by a good friend of mine, Rocky Lang. The book is called Letters from Hollywood, and it's by Abrams, which is a wonderful art book publisher. Very, it's a coffee table book. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And it has many letters from interesting actors and directors and writers and, so forth. And that letter, Ellen gave her permission to have it published. And it's now in that book for all to read.
That's great. That sounds beautiful. I mean, she's one of my favorites as well. And I always say, whenever I talk, Requiem for a Dream is a top 10 movie of mine.
Oh my God.
And I always say how robbed she was by Julia Roberts from whatever movie that was she was in for the role of Sarah Goldfarb in Requiem.
Yeah, phenomenal performance. Hard to watch because it was so brutally real, but incredibly powerful, raw,
extremely,
piece of work. And then on a very the opposite end of that kind of scale, from very dark to very emotionally, spiritually uplifting, was her performance in what is nominally has aspects of science fiction, but I looked at it as more of a spiritual film, and that was I know that's one of her favorites, and it's Resurrection. She was great in it, where she plays a woman who dies in a car accident, and when she comes back, it's a life after life thing. When she
has such amazing range, it's really unreal watching her do anything in any medium.
Yeah, no, she's phenomenal.
Hey, Dan. Dan says, hey, JT and Paul.
Hey there.
We got some Beast Within fans around here. for sure, because it is very, as we were saying backstage, it's a very underrated film still. And anytime that I get to talk about it, I instantly recommend this movie. I tell people, like anyone who hasn't seen this film, who's watching this and will pop in here and sees this in the future, if you haven't seen The Beast Within, do yourself a favor and do yourself a favor to Paul here and
They're about
check it out.
thank you. They're about to have a very good chance of doing that, an easier chance of doing that because
It's on
Kino,
Tubi.
Kino Lorber,
And Kino is releasing, right?
Yes, they're releasing it in December. 4K, the whole bit, Blu-ray, and unlike the previous Shout Factory release, which had audio commentaries and maybe the trailer, and that was about it. It was very bare bones. This will have all the audio commentaries, trailers, but a bunch of other stuff, including a feature-length documentary called
cool.
I Was a Teenage Cicada, The Making of the Beast Within.
That's a great title.
Yeah, and so yeah, they'll get a good chance to see, or an easier chance to see that. Get the Kino Lorber Blu-ray, and that's a whole wonderful package of stuff. A really great print of the movie and all the extras. Oh, also,
that sounds great.
Since you mentioned underrated, there's a quote that jumped out at me from one of my favorite genre magazines, Rue Morgue.
Rue Morgue, okay.
Canada. Rue Morgue magazine, a little while back, called The Beast Within a criminally underrated genre masterpiece.
Absolutely agreed. I mean, I feel hear a little bit of popping from your microphone. Little bit. Yeah, it's like a popping sound.
Really? I don't know.
Yeah, try talking now. Say something.
Hello? Popping?
Now it sounds all right.
It sounds okay? All right. Yeah, I don't know what that's weird. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Who knows? I mean, this thing, StreamYard, everyone on YouTube uses it. There's issues sometimes. A lot of times it's smooth as can be. So we'll just go for the ride, see where it takes us. But no, it's been. When did I see The Beast Within? Like 20 years ago as a teenager or something like that. But it's been years. Yeah.
What?
I was saying for years it was. And still to this day, it's one of my favorite 80s creature features, monster movies. Like we were saying before, there's so many different genres and, that are mixed into this film. It's part creature movie. It's part possession. Yeah, it's part possession movie. There's some romance in there. There's a whole town conspiracy. So there's a lot of layers. And then we have the whole cicada thing.
It's got a lot of references in it to Lovecraft. They're like little Easter eggs that the screenwriter, Tom Holland, the great Tom Holland.
His first film, right? Yeah. His first film.
Yeah, we were buddies. And it's great. I've stayed friends with a number of the people associated with the film. Philippe is a good friend.
Philippe Mora is, he's done so many movies. I just checked his IMDb to see if he's been doing anything lately. He's got 7 movies in production.
I've done a bunch of stuff with him even after The Beast Within. I did Communion with Christopher Walken.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he did Howling. He did Howling 2, Your Sister's a Werewolf, and Howling 3.
Howling 3 was a parody. Actually, that was a comedy. That was meant to be, and it has in it a parody of the transformation scene from The Beast Within.
Yep. I haven't seen the Howling sequels in forever.
Oh yeah, but he's done some really great things that just a lot of people didn't know about or haven't seen. A terrific true story World War II movie called Death of a Soldier, starring James Coburn, which is terrific, about the last American to be given a tribunal and executed at the end of World War II. He was a serial killer. Believe it, he was a soldier, and while he was fighting in World War II, he was actually a serial killer at the same time. It's a very unusual story, but true story.
Okay, I gotta check that out.
Very well done.
So, you started your first role was in '74, if I recall correctly. Or-
Which name the give
I,
me.
I have no idea the name. I saw it on IMDb. That was the first
Well,
credit that you had on there.
the very first thing I did was a pilot for a TV
Okay.
series called "If I Love You, Am I Trapped Forever." It was done by the people that did all the same people that did MASH.
You want to know something funny? My mom's first cousin is Alan Alda from MASH.
Oh, wow!
Yeah.
Okay, hey,
Yeah, great guy.
love,
I've
yeah.
seen him. Didn't seem too much over the years, but my great aunt and my mother's father were
Hmm.
both his father, Robert Alda,
Hmm.
and so they were 10 years apart. My grandfather, my great aunt, and Alan. So every 10 years they would do like a 60, 70, 80, 70, 80, 90. My great aunt lived to 104. But yeah, great, humble guy, a brilliant person too.
Yeah. Oh, I'll say I loved him in. Well, I loved everybody. I think Crimes and Misdemeanors with
Yeah, Crimes and Misdemeanors.
Landau and everybody in that was great. It was that was a wonderful one of Woody Allen's best films.
So, what led you to the role of Michael in The Beast Within?
Well, okay, let's see. Let me back up slightly. The role that really got my career going was when I got the leading role in a. Oh, my phone. Let me turn off. Hold on a minute.
No problem.
Yeah, let me just turn the volume down on this thing. Yeah, I got the leading role in a wonderful film directed by the British director Tony Richardson. And he did a ton of great things. One of his films won the Oscar for Best Picture, starring Albert Finney, the movie Tom Jones. Anyway, he directed me in the leading role of a film called A Death in Canaan, and that had a wonderful cast: Brian Dennehy, Tom Atkins, who I've stayed.
Legendary Tom Atkins.
Of course, you bet, and also Kenneth McMillan, who you will remember as Baron Harkonnen in David Lynch's Dune.
Dune, yep. I am a big David Lynch fan.
Oh my God, he's one of my 5.
I love. We could talk about Lynch forever. I'm sure.
I have a poster. I have a poster on my living room wall from Eraserhead, signed by both David Lynch and Jack Nance.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and
Jack Nance is so great too. I mean, everybody Lynch worked with was excellent.
I know. I got to spend an hour with Lynch once at his in his office at DEG. He had just done Blue Velvet, and we just had a wonderful talk about all kinds of stuff. He was a great guy, and there were things in Blue Velvet that I and my friends, we saw an early screening of the film before it was released. And we thought it was powerful and unsettling, like all those films, but it was also unexpectedly funny at times. And and when I mentioned a couple of those moments to Lynch, I didn't know how he would react. It's like, well, myself and a couple of my friends thought these things were very funny. Did he mean them to be? Oh yeah, he definitely meant it. He was laughing along with me when, recollecting those moments. He thought they were as funny as I did and my friends did. So I was relieved at that.
He's always struck me as someone with a very great sense of humor. David
very
Lynch.
much, yeah.
You got to have that balance, I guess, for the just the surreal insanity that he also comes up with. You got to have that balance.
Yeah, he wrote a screenplay, which I have a copy of, which I wish he'd be able to make. But over the years, he talked about it now and then, but I don't think it will probably ever happen, unfortunately. Imagine something like Eraserhead, okay, with that kind of tone and surrealistic, dreamlike, quality that only Lynch really can do in that way.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Imagine a movie like that done on the scale of Blade Runner.
Yeah. What was the name of that script again? I know what you're talking about.
It is called Ronnie Rocket.
Ronnie Rocket, right? Yeah. Okay.
Ronnie Rocket. It's a brilliant script. I thought it was.
He was just never able to get it made, right? he's tried many times over the years.
exactly. He signed it to me. I have
Oh, that's great.
a copy of it. Yeah, it was anyway just one of my all-time favorite directors, and I could go on about Lynch like I could about Hitchcock or Kubrick.
Yeah.
Or,
Well, you are Edgar Allan Poe, just encyclopedia and
yes,
scholar.
I am. Yes, I am literally a Poe scholar. That happened in the process of researching Poe and his life, in the process of writing a solo play, a one-man play, which I co-wrote with my very good friend for many years, Ron McGid, and he and I wrote the play together, and for me to do as an actor, and it opened in Hollywood. It ran for 4 months, got very good reviews, and then I did it, various other places and times. And the play was called, at that time, it was called Once Upon a Midnight: The Confessions of Edgar Allan Poe. And later, it was transmuted into Edgar Allan Poe: Once Upon a Midnight. That's when John Aston did it. You see, I was busy doing other things, and I had done the Poe for several years, and then was doing other stuff. And I ran into John Aston, who I had known very well for some years. I knew him when he was married to Patty Duke. And I went to school with 2 of his sons. I spent weekends at his home, and he became like a mentor, a second father to me. Great guy, still with us, still going strong at close to 90.
Wow,
he is 90, getting close to that, yeah. And I ran into him at a Blockbuster video, and hadn't seen him real recently, and we kind of got caught up, and I somehow the subject of the Poe play came up, and I told him about it. And I said, "Has anybody ever told you you bear a resemblance to Poe?" And he said, "Funny." He said, "Funny you should say that, because he said, I've been thinking about developing some kind of solo show, a one-person show based around a literary figure. And I've sort of been tossing that idea around, and I had, several possible ideas, and one of them was Poe." And I said, "John, look no further. I have just the play for you." And I got him a copy of it. He read it, loved it. And fast forward a little while, and Ron and I, together working with John, opened a workshop production of it at the Civic Center in Des Moines, Iowa. Again, got wonderful reviews. But that was really a workshop, in the sense that after every performance, we would talk with the audience and ask their reactions to things. Was anything unclear to you, etc. And but that went very well. And then we went back to LA, continued to work on it, polishing it. And then it had its official opening in a place that just got hit pretty badly by the hurricane in Florida.
Florida.
The Oslo Conservatory Theater in Sarasota.
Okay.
And Sarasota is right next to St. Petersburg. That whole area got hit.
Terrible what happened down there. 2 storms. Yeah.
Terrible, one after the other. But anyway, our play, when it opened there, it was a huge success, so much so that they actually doubled the run of the play. Ran for twice as long as it was originally scheduled to, and the reviews were raves, and that was the beginning. And then John continued to do the show for the next 10 years, all around the world. He did it in Australia, Scotland, Ireland, all over the U.S., as I said, for like 10 years, and finally retired the show to, what he did was he moved to Baltimore. He had roots there. He had gone to school there originally. He had roots with Johns Hopkins University, and that's where he wound up becoming a professor and creating a drama department there. He created their drama department. So, and he was there for some, I don't know, another 10 years, at least. teaching and so forth. And then now, finally, he is, I think, retired. Not finally, like
Yeah, yeah. But get the hook.
What I mean is, he damn well earned it.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it sounded. I mean, 10
Yeah.
years, one huge project going to another. I mean, definitely. I mean, you can
Yeah.
finally. I mean, unless I mean, I guess it just never dies in the
No.
passion. You know,
And
like
in
being
the
a musician, the same thing. It just keeps
but
going
back,
on.
but back to Poe. In the process of researching the play, I began putting together quite a collection about Poe and books on his life, first editions, first appearances of his work, and that just grew and grew. And so over the years, I added to it and added to it, and now I have one of the biggest Poe collections in private hands.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's amazing.
many first editions, first appearances of, you name it. First appearance of the Raven, I've got it.
Wow.
The first edition of his.
I can't imagine having some of those first editions, especially like that. That's excellent.
The first edition of his only novel, the narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym. I've got that. I have his very last book, Eureka, about the origins of the universe. Just you name it, man. I could talk for Poe about that for hours about Poe.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm in. I've been involved with documentaries about Poe. People can go on YouTube now, and if they want to look up one of my documentaries, the first one I was in, I'm all through it as one of the talking heads. They interviewed me on camera for it. It also has artwork that I did of Poe that appears throughout the documentary. And they photographed many items from my collection. So when you see books, close-ups of things, very likely that was from my collection. And it's part of a series, which I'm sure you've heard of, A&E Biography, which ran forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's their episode. It's called The Mystery of Edgar Allan Poe. So if you look that up, The Mystery of Edgar Allan Poe on YouTube, that's the one. It's hosted by Peter Graves. And that's the one. Yeah, of course. And that's the one with me in it. And then much more recently, I was involved in a documentary about Poe called Edgar Allan Poe Buried Alive, which is narrated by an interesting choice. Kathleen Turner narrated it, and Poe is played beautifully in it by no, I knew I'd blank eventually on some name. Wonderful actor Dennis. He's in all of the seasons of American Horror Story. He was in each of those.
The sound that popping's back a bit.
Oh, is it? Sorry,
Yeah.
maybe I got too close to the microphone.
That might be what it is.
Dennis O'Hare. Dennis
O'Hare is a great actor.
Great actor. He could play anything, and he was wonderful as Poe in that documentary. It was done for PBS, and beautifully done. And I was involved in that. I helped to get I co-wrote the document that it was a grant proposal, the development grant proposal from the National Endowment for the Humanities, and it was one of only 11 grants that they awarded that year. They got hundreds of submissions, but they only granted 11 development grants, and one of them was to the one that I co-wrote the proposal for. So anyway, but on to other things. I don't know how I got from A Death in Canaan to, because of the cast. That's right. That got me to David Lynch because I mentioned.
Yes. I do the same thing, man. You can ask anyone who watches my channel. I go on tangent, and then I got to circle back, but you always find your way back, though.
Yeah, exactly. Tangent upon tangent. But anyway,
yep.
But that got the ball rolling with my career. It was an Emmy-nominated film done, for CBS. And it was very powerful, true story, and because of that, I got just a ton of work, after that, and eventually, one of those became The Beast Within, and my audition for that, as I remember, was at 20th Century Fox, which is where I did that thing I did years before, that pilot did not sell. The one by the people that did MASH was also at Fox, and I just had a really great meeting with Philippe. We really hit it off. Well, they saw my work, on tape, and it was an offer. They didn't have to really read scenes or anything. I just, discussed it. I was definitely excited by the idea of it because I was a monster kid. I mean, I grew up with Famous Monsters magazine. I wrote articles for Famous Monsters when I was a young teenager. I also did the Paul Day Clemens. I use my middle name as an artist and as a writer, Paul Day Clemens, like Daniel Day-Lewis. As an actor, though, it's just Paul Clemens. But
Is there a reason for that?
Just to keep them separate. That's all.
Okay, makes sense.
But one issue of Famous Monsters has in it the Paul Day Clemens Exorcist portfolio. It's a whole series of drawings that I did at the time, because if you'll recall, when the movie came out, there were no photos of the makeup. They kept it very, you had to go to the movie to see it. Nothing in magazines. The first time I saw any picture of the makeup, it was the size of a postage stamp, and it appeared in the American Cinematographer magazine in an article about the making of the film. But it was one tiny little photo. But that was the first time. That was like, a year after the movie had been out. So so I went to the movie theater, with a camera, like, a fancy, a Nikon, and I took color slides off the screen. It was very tricky to do. I think I went back and saw the movie something like 12 times in order to get the exact shots I needed, because it kept catching frames, like in between frames. Very, very tricky, but I did get all the stuff I needed, as reference material. And using those, I was able to do very realistic drawings of, all of the, there were so many different stages of the makeup. My God, Dick Smith.
Yeah, I'm sure. I know, unreal.
But a lot of the more memorable images I was able to capture in both pencil, pen and ink, etc. And they were published, by Famous Monsters. So, and now today, as it happens, I'm years later, I'm still very good friends with Michael Blatty, William Peter Blatty's son.
Oh,
and he's a great guy and very talented himself, wonderful writer. And in fact, he's working on a book about the creation of The Exorcist by his dad, both the novel and the film, and his involvement, his own, Mike's involvement, because Mike was there when stuff was being shot. And, so I can't wait for that. And I know a lot of people connected to The Exorcist. I became good friends with Dick Smith before the film came out. In fact, I was friends with Dick. Max von Sydow, family friend.
Great actor, is he? That's great.
Wonderful actor. He was fantastic. And I'm still good friends with his son, Henrik, who I later wound up going to school with at Beverly High. And Max von Sydow invited me to to Warner Brothers Studios when he was making the somewhat less celebrated film, The Heretic.
Yes.
In which he appeared as the
young old heretic.
Yes, in which he appeared as the young Father Merrin. In fact, another dear friend of mine, Bennett Yellen, co-writer of the movie, a movie you may have heard of called Dumb and Dumber. He and I, yeah, absolutely. He and I are both interviewed in that documentary about that's coming out. It's not ready yet, but it's being worked on, and it's a documentary about The Heretic and all the craziness that surrounded the making of it and the release and the reception of it, and so forth. And it should be extremely entertaining. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, Exorcist is in my top films of all time. And just a quick thanks to Russell sent in $5. Hi JT and Paul 68 and big fan of the Beast Within. Transformation scene is great. Yeah, we're going to talk all about that transformation scene in a bit.
So not talk about the transformation.
Oh yeah, how can you? It's the centerpiece of the movie.
Yeah. What I was going to say though is So with my background with famous monsters and having written a number of articles, in fact, their article on The Exorcist when the film first came out, I wrote their what they called film books. I wrote the film book article
Okay.
on The
Oh, wow.
Exorcist when it first came out. And in fact, their issue on The Exorcist that has a Basil Gogos cover of Linda sticking with the tongue coming out. That was actually based on a little pencil drawing I did, which was about that big. That
Really?
appeared.
I never. That's a great little tidbit. I know that artwork.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so anyway, with that background of growing up, around famous monsters and so forth, I was a natural fit for The Beast Within to play a kid who turns into a monster. I was very excited by that prospect, not just because it was a monster, but the whole Jekyll and Hyde idea of this nice kid periodically becoming something else, becoming, ultimately evil, and, this supernatural curse, and he's anguished. And, it was just, I knew it would be a very entertaining and fun role to dig my fangs into, so to speak.
And I mean, I remember seeing you on, there's a great documentary, guys who watch, for it's like maybe 10 years ago now, the 50 greatest horror movies you've never seen.
The 50 best films you've never seen. And when I was brought in by Anthony Massey to do that, he interviewed me about a whole bunch of different movies, different films that were going to be among those 50
among the list, right?
The 50, right. And but at that time, nobody had any idea, what the exact order was going to be, which would be number 1, 2, 3, etc.
Yeah, and they didn't know how to cut it with who would talk for about each film. Yeah.
So I had no idea. So anyway, I did interviews with him, a long interview for a few hours. And in the documentary, I'm all through the documentary talking about other movies, not just The Beast Within. But what delighted and surprised me when I saw the documentary was that the number 1 choice, Black Christmas, no argument there. That's a total favorite. Love it. In fact,
absolutely.
In fact,
Olivia, I don't know if I'd put it as number 1, but I'm fine with that. List was a decent list.
It was a very influential movie. That was before Halloween.
Absolutely.
And the whole idea of the whole idea of seeing things through the eyes of the killer, the camera.
Oh yeah, that was all Bob Clark there.
Bob Clark, and then so anyway, and interestingly, Olivia Hussey from that film, the leading lady, is now and has been for some time a social media friend of mine, Facebook.
Yeah, a lot of Olivia Hussey fans.
Oh yeah, she's fantastic, wonderful woman, very talented. And then number 2 on that list was a favorite I know with a lot of people. It certainly has one of the greatest monsters of all time, Pumpkinhead.
Pumpkinhead is Winston. I mean, his directing, his makeup, his effect work, everything is great about the atmosphere.
It's a wonderful film. It's a favorite. So that was number 2, and number 3, The Beast Within. Did you? I don't know if you heard me. Hello? You hear me? Did the sound go off?
Yeah, you got the popping back again.
Oh God.
Yeah,
popping like that. Again. Oh, yeah. I don't know what happened.
I don't know if it's just the mic.
Because I'm not touching it. I'm nowhere near it. I don't know what I would do to fix it. I really don't know what I would do to fix it.
Yeah, it could just be our connection. It could be our connection too.
Because I hear you fine, unless we're talking at the same time, which the crisscross thing. Anyway, I was going to say I did say already, and number.
Let's try it now.
Okay, so number 1, Black Christmas. Number 2, Pumpkinhead, and number 3 was The Beast Within.
Yeah, I know it was number 3 on that list, and it's a list like, I mean, guys and friends of mine in chat and stuff who are horror fanatics like ourselves. You've probably seen 75%, if not every film on that list, because I know
most of them.
I
couple I
actually
had.
did like a 2-hour video where I commented on every I like kind of commented on that documentary. And I
Oh,
did
huh?
that maybe like a year or so ago, and I go down through every 50 of the movies. And I think you got a plug in or a mention in that video actually when they mentioned the Beast Within, because when
Yeah.
I first saw that, I thought it was a great documentary, and I could tell immediately that you were a horror fan, and I was already a fan of the Beast
Hmm.
Within.
Hmm.
And I saw, I said, oh, he's got great stories too behind it. So yeah, you got a lot of trivia on the movie too. That it's going to
Oh,
be great to hear.
yes, I do. Uh, Now, because I already had a background and an interest in horror and makeup effects and so forth, um, I was totally game and willing for the process that would be involved, the grueling process of doing all of the makeup effects for that film, because
Yeah.
there were many of them, and I had to be cast. My whole body was cast from head to toe, my face, my body, my hands, feet, you name it, and to produce not only the full beast costume, because I was actually, most people don't realize that I actually was the beast at the end of the film, the
Yep.
final beast. I
And
was in.
you insisted on that. I know
I
that.
insisted. I did. I insisted. Said I'm not going to, star in a
Damn
horror movie,
right. Damn
a
right.
monster. I'm not going to star in a monster movie and not get to play the monster.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
And
Um,
guys who haven't seen the movie and are listening, like there's the transformation scene in this film. It was
five
right in
minutes.
'82 with the bladder effects and the blubber effects were really getting big after American Werewolf and The Howling with those transformations. So then
That's right.
leading up to my favorite movie ever, The Thing. But
Hmm.
this movie, the transformation is one of my favorite transformation scenes. Even if it goes
It
so
was a
over
far.
the top,
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
but it works so well for the movie. Like it doesn't feel. I know I think Tom Holland wasn't fully satisfied with parts of the transformation scene,
I don't know
but
if is.
I
I don't.
love it.
Yeah, that might be true of Tom. I can't remember exactly. I know that Tom Berman was not completely thrilled with how far some of the shots went. Um,
Yeah,
but
it's 3 minutes long.
it,
That transformation scene. Like I counted when I rewatched it the other night, from when it starts and like all the makeup effects on your face, getting your
yep,
writhing bed, till you're fully the creature standing on top of the bed is about
right,
3 minutes long. Like
three
and three
minutes.
minutes of just prosthetic effects and practical effects and makeup effects that
It
just really
it,
hold up.
yeah, they do. It took 3 days to shoot that. So maybe about a minute's worth of the transformation per day. So yeah, 3 minutes seems 3 days to shoot.
Wow.
And there were many stages of the makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah, many stages, and each stage, would be hours more in the makeup chair. I didn't care. I was totally up for that. And
Nice.
yeah, and we filmed it, the transformation. We filmed in a disused part of a mental hospital, an old mental hospital called Whitfield State uh, Lunatic Asylum or something. This was an ancient place, right? They don't use it anymore, but there was an
It
old
is.
stone sign on the campus of this. I mean, there were so many buildings on this campus, it looked like UCLA. It was not a small place, but this was the oldest building there, I
Yeah,
think.
the old wing.
Oh yeah, it had a basement you could film a horror movie in. It was looked like something that had sunk under the ocean. It looks like the walls were covered with barnacles, and I mean it was greenish. Oh, it was weird. And these marble tables with straps and all of this hydrotherapy equipment. It was really creepy place. But anyway, it was in that building that we shot the transformation. And during the filming, at one point,
This is
we
great.
we looked up. We looked over and we noticed that there was one of the patients in their hospital standing there staring in
Oh, that's so
horror
funny.
at what we were doing and what was happening to me. And we were pretty sure we must have set his therapy back several years.
Yeah. That is such a great story because I heard that for the first time. I think Philip
Absolutely,
Mora says it in the
yeah,
documentary, and I've
absolutely true.
always wanted to hear it from your perspective
No, I was
because
there. I was
I know,
ab-
yeah, that is such a great story.
absolutely true. Also, at another point, when I was looking normal, there was still one of the hospital scenes, but I hadn't. It was not in the transformation makeup. But I was passing the time with one of the crew members by playing ball with Don Gordon's severed head from later in the movie when I
Yeah,
beat
that's a great
his
kill
head off.
too. I love that decapitation.
We were playing ball using his head, throwing it like a basketball, throwing the head back and forth, and
Oh,
and
and this
and then
guy's
we were,
Siegel is
two more patients saw us doing that.
really.
Yeah, two women, two female
Oh,
patients
that's
were
so funny.
staring like yeah,
I mean, it's funny in hindsight, but that's
yes.
hilarious. I have a dark sense of humor. That's
I don't
fucking
know if it
hilarious.
was.
Are you serious?
I don't know if it was funny to them.
Yeah, no, that probably train wrecked them forever. But
Yeah, really.
but at least we got a classic horror monster movie out of it.
Yeah. Oh
I think
yeah.
that if they saw the movie, they'd be willing to be all
Yeah.
right with it.
You know, one of the moments in the film that everyone assumes is some kind of an effect. Oh, and by the way, uh, there were all those stages of the makeup that I was
Oh
in,
yeah,
but
it keeps
uh,
progressing.
but there were also two completely different two different moments that were not me at all. They were mechanical busts,
Yeah,
uh, mechanics, and uh, with hydraulics and all of that. And one of them was for when my that insect tongue comes
yeah,
out of my
I love that shot. And the
yeah,
other one I'm guessing is the chipmunk. It's been
well, yeah,
called over the years.
the Charlie Brown head.
Yeah.
The
That's what I figured all these years. I figured those were the two only dummy,
you,
shots and
you,
stuff, and then you're in every other shot of that.
JT, do you remember the earlier scene in the film with my doctor, played by uh, R.G. Armstrong? Uh,
Yes.
he's holding that toy in his hand and he's squeezing it. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
And
yeah, okay.
it's one of these weird things. It's called an obie, OBIE. You can still get them, an obie. And when you squeeze it, its head gets really large and its eyes bug out. The head swells
Yeah,
up.
okay. I
Well,
know what you mean.
and there's this foreshadowing of the transformation later, earlier in the movie when he's sitting
That's
talking about
cool.
the thing and he's
I never
squeezing
linked that together. That's
and
really
it's
interesting.
exactly what literally happens to me in the transformation. Would you like to see, or do you think your audience would like to see, my doll, my action figure from the Beast
Absolutely.
and Dead? It only
Show it
came
off.
out. It came out last December from Distinctive Dummies. It's about the size of like a little smaller than a GI Joe, and I have it right here.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you sent me a picture of it one day in the last week or so. It looks great. There
There
you
we
go.
go.
Show it. Perfect. Yeah, that's good. The glare's down. That's so
Um,
cool.
there we go. And here, I'll just open up I can open up the package, take it out. It's a lot easier to see.
It's about damn time we got a figurine of you and the Beast Within. We got a Beast
Oh,
Within
right.
figurine.
There we go. Oh,
That's awesome.
There we go.
Did it. Yeah, they did a very good job with that. I can
Yeah.
see the makeup now on it with the they got the bladder effects going.
Bladders, yes, that's right.
That's
Yeah.
cool. How does it
There you
feel having those on you and stuff? And when they're going off, do you feel it, or you probably have so much prosthetics
I,
already on top, or does
I,
you feel it popping?
oh, I damn well feel it. It's at times, especially with how far they were pushing some of those effects.
Yeah.
Imagine very large band-aids on you, including on your body hair, being pulled off very slowly.
Okay.
That stretching, that's what it felt like, having band-aids slowly ripped off of you. Yeah.
Wow.
But it was okay. It helped. I used the pain.
Yeah. No, I mean your whole performance throughout this movie is great. I mean, there's a little bit, like I said, of everything. I mean, you have this coming of age tale, and again, for people who haven't seen this movie, it opens up. We have Ronnie Cox in it as your father, and BB Besh as the mom. just a great cast, a great score, very
Oh,
underrated score.
right here. If here, I'll try to let me take off this so it's not shiny. Here's the cover to the thing.
Slip
Here's
cover.
the there we go. There we go.
There we go.
Um,
Awesome.
this is put out by Entrada Records, and they did a beautiful job with it. And it's the entire score that you hear in the film, plus music you did not hear in the film. There's two great tracks, the main title and the end credits, which are absolutely stunning pieces of music, really gorgeous, and they're not in the film. Fortunately,
Yeah.
they fortunately are on the album. And years ago, I actually took that main title opening theme and I was able to put it together with the video of the credits from the film. And
Nice.
since it was written to be perfectly timed with those credits, if you
Yeah.
start at the time the credits begin, it's perfectly synced.
Yeah,
It's
you
in
can edit the music right in over it.
And the thing was that the main theme that's there now and the end credit theme is simply the music that plays all through the transformation scene. So you don't need to have that piece of music
again.
3 times in the movie. You know, I just, that was a disappointment because Les Baxter is one of my favorite composers. He's was a brilliant, guy, so creative, and he created the whole exotica movement, the music that is associated with tiki stuff. The song Quiet Village, which is sort of the anthem of that whole time, and that whole tropical scene. He wrote that, and my God, the scores he did for the Edgar Allan Poe films starring Vincent Price. You can imagine.
He's done a lot of great music. Like I don't know anything that I've heard from him that I did not like in any way.
Dunwich Horror with Dean Stockwell.
Dunwich Horror.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I started to mention there's all these Lovecraft references in The Beast Within.
There's like some of the names. Dexter Warden, is that one of them? Dexter Ward.
Dexter Ward. There's like 3 or 4 throughout the little Lovecraft references. Yeah. So anyway, I got to be there for the scoring session or sessions. It was done over a few days.
You're telling me that's got to be interesting, seeing how he was putting it all together, right?
Oh, absolutely. And he was a great guy. He was like Santa Claus. He was so lovable. And and we stayed friends. We had some nice talks. He lived in Palm Springs, which so did my mother at the time, and before she passed away. She was 91 when she passed. That was in 2013. And but Les, he passed away, I think, before my mom did, as I recall. It was before. And we had some good long talks about all kinds of stuff. He was just a great guy. And to see him at work, and doing the score for a film that I was starring in, I mean, doesn't get much better than that.
It's got to be surreal.
Yeah, but that music, people really should get the album and listen to that, because the whole score is great. And there is some of that lush, beautiful orchestral music later in the movie that did, stay in the film, like during the swamp scene, my love scene with Kitty Ruth Moffat, that where the dog comes and interrupts us with a hand from a body and drops it onto.
Great stuff.
Yes, talk about interrupt us.
Stacy wants to know, not horror, but I'd love to hear Paul's thoughts on The Pale Blue Eye.
Pale Blue Eye. I thought it was actually an excellent film. It was, very well made. The cast was terrific. There wasn't much not to like. I really had a very good time with that. I was more critical of the movie Nevermore, with John Cusack as Poe.
I've seen that one.
It was fun. It was very enjoyable, but little things bother me when it comes to Poe. Like, Poe did not.
I can imagine. I mean, as so versed in Poe you are, I can imagine.
Poe did not have a goatee ever. He only had a mustache. And that was only for the last 5 years of his life. The mustache, like you, mustache.
Yeah.
You have a goatee. You have a little bit of yeah. But as do I, of course. But Poe did not have a goatee, so that sort of annoyed me. And in Pale Blue Eyes, it's a young Poe, and he's a cadet at West Point, and he did a very good job. The actor who played Poe, and so did Christian Bale and Robert Duvall. Everybody was good in it. It was very well photographed and directed. It was based on a very good book, Pale Blue Eyes. I mean, it's fiction. It's not a true story, but it has things in it that are taken from Poe and his life. So anyway, yeah, that was. I've seen so many things based on Poe that were, not so good, but that's one of the better ones. Look, I'm a fan of the Corman Poe films, especially Fall of the House.
I enjoy some of Corman's ones. Yeah, Full House Usher.
Price was
The Pit and the Pendulum. Pit and the Pendulum is a great one.
Yeah, over the top but fun. Price himself that was was very subtle in Usher as Roderick Usher. It was a very subtle performance, and he was wonderful in it. It looks like he came right out of the book, or story, I should say. And then also the other one I loved was Mask of the Red Death, which was so beautifully directed.
That's another great one.
Do you know who the director of photography was on that?
No.
Nicholas Roeg, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay.
I know he was on the film. He worked on it. I think he was the director of photography. Nicholas Roeg later became a great director. Don't Look Now, marvelous film.
Don't Look Now is great.
Yeah, but he was as I recall, the cinematographer, and it had a nice feeling to it that was almost like an Ingmar Bergman film, and definitely above the level of a lot of stuff at that time, and certainly one of the better done things based on Poe. It was actually a combination of two stories, The Mask of the Red Death and a story called Hop Frog, and they dovetailed the two cleverly together and made a single story.
Yeah, weaved them in together. Yeah.
They wove it together, and both of them take place in the court, a royal court kind of atmosphere, and so the setting was had a perfect confluence.
I
remember what I was about.
Horror films of all time. Favorite? Yeah, go ahead. Go with that first, and then we'll get.
Hang on to that because I have them. I can easily give you a list of things. But in The Beast Within, there is a moment in the film where, watching it, people assume they are seeing a makeup effect, some kind of mechanical thing involving my hand. Okay, and it's not a makeup effect. I did it myself. It's a close-up of my hand as I'm touching blood on a plate on a table.
I know what you mean.
And as my fingers connect with the blood, they start going into this weird shape. Well, I'm double jointed. Is what it is.
Okay.
So
that's it. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So there, you see my hand, right? Am I in focus?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll show you what. Here's what my hand did.
Yeah. I know the exact shot you're talking about. I did not know you were double jointed.
Yeah. See, so
that's it. For people who are squeamish and are on a horror channel, I don't know what the fuck you're doing here, but. What would you say is the hardest? Before we get to your favorite horror movies, the hardest scene in that film?
There were two memorably difficult scenes. Oh, for one thing, I love telling people about my stunt double in the movie, because only in Hollywood and only in a horror movie would you have a stunt man who comes from Transylvania. I still remember his name. He was a lovely guy. His name was Sorin Procopia, and he was my stunt double. Great guy, and from Transylvania. No joke.
You see him jumping through the window, right?
You do, yes. He's the one who crashes through and falls to the ground. That was Serene, yeah. So anyway, the two most difficult scenes for very different reasons. Okay, the hardest scene to get through was the killing of Logan Ramsey.
Okay, when you go over the food
to deliver the groceries.
Yeah.
And I look at him, and then I see the groceries that I want, which is him. I want dinner. I'm very hungry at that point, and it's the beast is taking me over, and I'm just having to sit there on this chair next to a counter where he is making his dinner, which is some sort of a meatloaf kind of thing. He was going to make hamburgers or something, and then he changed his mind. He makes it a meatloaf, and the scene was filled with these hilarious improvisations from Logan, and just very funny lines where he looks at the thing of meat, and he was going to like break it apart and do something with it, and then he goes, no, it's too pretty to do that to it. I know, and then he's
just cracking you up over and over again.
Rams his fist into the meat, making a crater, and then he takes this big bottle of like A1 steak sauce or Worcestershire sauce, and he starts just blub blub blub. He starts pouring the stuff into it, and then he's like mashing it all together, and then it keeps cutting back to me, and I'm looking very intense. Well, a number of these were not. It was okay in the close-ups of me because those were shot later, but when it was a master shot, and we're both together in the same shot at the same time, it became increasingly difficult for me not to laugh, because Logan was hilarious with these, and then he's going like, maybe if I crushed up some saltines a little, extended it a little, and then he says to me, how do you like? He says he's going to give me some, and he says, how do you like yours? I like mine rare. Makes waiting easy. So
and then once you get on that laughter roll, then it's so hard to stop. Well, it's harder and harder.
Absolutely. But I had to hold it all in, right? I mean, I'm ready to kill him. I'm not amused. I'm ready to
kill and eat this man.
I'm ready to tear his throat out with my teeth, which in fact I do. So I'm building up to that. What really did not help, even though I loved working with Philippe, he was great. He's a crazy man in the best kind of way, but like a lot of directors. But he wasn't helpful at that moment doing that scene, because he had a handkerchief in his mouth. He was laughing so hard. He had tears of laughter. Really? And he was jamming a handkerchief into his mouth to stifle the laughter.
Yeah.
And I was all too aware of my peripheral vision. I knew damn well that he was convulsing.
That he's there holding it.
Trying not to spoil the takes. Well, he had the luxury of the handkerchief and all of that. I did not have that same luxury. And I was
You're
on
in kill mode. You're in kill mode.
In kill mode. And that was one of the harder things I've had to do, because and to my credit, I did not spoil a single take. Philippe may have spoiled one or two of the takes. I think he did. I didn't. So
there you go. That's one thing you can hold over him.
Yes.
Great. That's so funny to hear him cracking up on the side watching you guys try to do it over and over too.
So that was one. And then the other scene that was, I won't say most difficult. I will say it was the weirdest scene I've ever been asked to do.
Okay.
One of them anyway. Yeah. Incredibly weird scene for me to do. And that was the rape at the end of the movie of poor Kitty Moffat. Now, it was not her through most of the scene. She was in there just for a couple close-ups where she looks up and sees me come. She's unconscious when it starts. Then she regains consciousness, sees me, on top of her as a monster. At that point, I'm the full beast, and screams horribly, and I'm probably faints again. I can't remember. But anyway, but that was me, in that suit. Okay. Well, a body double did the rest of the scene for her. Had the head turned away slightly, and some similar body type, similar hair, etc. The blonde hair. And this poor girl who did this scene, man, it was freezing out there. Okay. And she's naked at that point. I tear all of her clothes off. I tear up with my claws, right? I tear all the clothes off. And it was so cold that vapor, steam was rising off of her skin. I mean, that's how cold it was out in the woods. Yeah.
How many takes?
Well, too many.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Different angles and so forth. Anyway, here I am in this beast costume on top of this girl who I've never met in my life. and I'm having to do these terrible things to her, and apologizing to her in between. Tell you, I'm so sorry. It's terrible. So and here's Philippe again, Philippe making it that much more difficult for me. He's off to the side, giving me very strange directions for what he wanted me to be expressing during this whole onslaught. And then towards the end, he's like, now can you come to some sort of climax? And I'm like, God, it's just
like all these weird things are being thrown at me right now.
Exactly. Here I am, and I can't even see really out of when I'm encased in that suit. The eyes were like much larger versions of my own eyes, and they were mechanical and they move around. It was, it had mechanics inside of it. I could make the mouth open and close, and from inside it, what I could not do very well was see. The only way I could see was through the nostrils of the beast. These two tiny holes. So that was
you could see great out of that.
Well, exactly. So here I am trying to, hit my marks, trying to not hit her and bash her in the face or doing so, so I'm trying to maneuver in this costume, which was by itself not that uncomfortable for me because it was nice and warm. And it was, as I told you, it was freezing.
Yeah.
So I was nice and toasty while this poor girl was freezing to death. Well, there was a happy ending for her. Because, and I don't mean that kind of happy ending.
Yeah, I
we already went
thinking the same thing.
No, but as it happened, one of the guys on the crew took such pity on her and just felt so badly for her. He wound up marrying her.
Oh, so that's a nice resolution.
They had a happy marriage, and may they still be together. I have no idea, but they got married, and hopefully
let's hope they are, because that's a nice silver lining for the horrendous conditions filming that. Yeah, but I think a lot of that discomfort, maybe the wrong word, but everything you just described, the feeling doing that scene, translates to a very disturbing scene.
Oh yeah.
So I think all of it just worked very, very well, because that is we have the disturbing rape in the very beginning of the film, and then you have the disturbing rape at the end of the film.
This is one movie that does not glorify rape.
Yeah.
Doesn't try to make it, it's what it is. It's not meant to be appealing. So interestingly, the convention, I do a lot of convention appearances, as you might imagine. And the last one I did, I was sitting right next to this lovely woman, Camille, who, as it happens, played the leading role in I Spit on Your Grave.
Okay.
So talk about...
I was just thinking of that while you were saying, this is the type of film that doesn't glorify in any type of way and stuff. A few movies came to mind. Not that they glorify it, but this is more of a different film.
Well, yes.
Yeah, and the way it's handled is very, very different.
Yeah, very different. Now, there's a couple funny stories subsequent to the release of the movie that I should tell. A couple of very anecdotes. There's one I know you have heard and that you love. Everybody likes this story. It's so bizarre. Some years later, I was working for just over a year for the wonderful video company Anchor Bay. Anchor Bay Entertainment. And I probably worked on about 60 or 65 different movies, during the year I was there as production coordinator. I was with the team that produced all of the bonus materials, all of the bonus features.
Right.
And so I worked on, the year I was there, we did Masters of Horror, the series produced by Nick Garrett. Worked with everyone in the business who you could imagine, anyone in the horror field. And if they were in that field, they came through our offices, Angus Scrim, all kind of, you name it.
I'm a huge Phantasm fan. The whole series.
Me too. What a lovely man he was. What a gentleman. Rory Guy was his real name. And you couldn't meet a more lovely guy, just really a gentleman and so knowledgeable. Did you know that for some years, he was the go-to guy for writing liner notes for various music recordings, for classical, for jazz, for you name it. He wrote
I
liner
know, I
notes.
know he was. I know he was into music and everything. I knew he was a musician and all
Oh, he
that.
was
I did not
so
know. I did not know that.
yeah, so knowledgeable about music, and just an incredible gentleman, and he was a delight. Everybody, I mean, God, we worked with so many amazing people. Just look up
Yeah.
Masters of Horror, you'll see all the people that we worked with. I got to finally meet one of my idols, Dario Argento.
Yeah, I am a huge Argento fan. Fulci, Bava is one
Yeah.
of my favorite directors ever with
Well,
Lynch and
there you go. There you go. Yep. And
Carpenter.
and when I met Dario, oh, what I was just so surprised at how sweet he was. What a sweet guy. He was just if he knows you appreciate his work, that you get what he does, and that you appreciate it. He is like all over you. I mean, the guy was just with that Italian effusive kind of.
Yeah.
He grabbed me, hugs me, and he says, "Oh, my friend, my friend." He was hugging me, hugging, "Oh, my friend," and I'm like, "Oh my God."
That's how I've always pictured him, like that.
No, I
And
know.
I'm half Italian. I get the whole hand. I always move my hands. It's an Italian thing for sure.
As you've noticed, so do I. But but he's like, "Oh, my friend," and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm being hugged by the director of Suspiria." I can't.
Right, because he did Masters of Horror. He did.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I'm working for. This was during the time the story happened at the time I was working for Anchor Bay. I was taking my lunch break, and I went across the street. I think it was Sunset. It was either Santa Monica Boulevard or Sunset. I think it was Santa Monica Boulevard, and near Highland. Anyway, there was a liquor store. It's probably still there. I walk across the street to get a sandwich or snack or something, and I'm standing at one point at the magazine stand in that liquor store, and I look over, and it's like, oh, it was standing next to me at the magazine stand was Queen Latifah.
This is a great story.
And her movie, Chicago, wrong musical.
Yeah.
Her movie, Chicago, had just come out, and I had just seen it. And so I told her, I said, "Excuse me, I just saw your film. You just were wonderful in it. I love your work, and just you knocked it out of the park. It was great, blah, blah, blah." Just, again, super, super nice, down to earth, really, sweet, easy to talk to. And then she looks at me kind of oddly, and she goes, "You look familiar to me. Do I know you?" And I said, "Well, I'm an actor." And she said, "Oh, what have you done?" So I start mentioning a few different films and TV shows, different things. I'm not getting a recognition response until I got to The Beast Within. As soon as I mentioned The Beast Within, her eyes got like that, like wide as saucers. And her mouth opens and she points at me and she goes, "Oh my God, it's you. It's you. Oh my God." She said, "The Beast Within. I've seen that." She said, "I've seen that movie 5 times." She said, "It's one of my favorite. I've seen it 5 times." And she said, "My brother and I used to hide behind the couch when we were kids. You scared the hell out of us." Oh man,
That's a great story. I mean, that Queen Latifah is a big fan of the film, and you succeeded in scaring the hell out of her.
Scared the hell out of her.
What more can you ask for?
and kind of connected to that, I was in a store one day, one of those big box stores called Bed Bath and Beyond, and looking for stuff in there. And a guy who works there, who I don't know at all, comes walking up to me and thrusts out his hand to shake my hand. And I'm like, "What is this?" So I shake his hand. And he goes, "I just wanted to shake the hand of the guy who scared the crap out of me when I was a teenager."
I mean, it's really, really effective, the whole movie, because it has this very creepy atmosphere that builds throughout all of it. And I mean, like we said earlier, it starts off with a very disturbing rape sequence by a monster. So it starts off, it was handling some pretty taboo things for early 80s and stuff. I mean, we saw more as the 80s went on, but for 82,
in the scene just prior to that first rape, as you'll recall, Phoebe Besh and Ronnie Cox are driving at night through the woods, right? And they're listening to the radio. There's some country music playing.
Ronnie Cox wrote that, right?
He wrote and performed it. That's him singing it.
Wow.
He wrote it and he performed it. He has a band stuff. To this day. He has a band. I mean, music was really maybe a greater passion for him than acting. I mean, marvelous actor, obviously. Deliverance, just so many great films over the years. I love his work, but his heart was in music in a different kind of way. He was really just he was a very talented musician, and and he and his band they still performs to this day, and his other big thing was running. Oh my God, he was such a dedicated runner. He would get up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m.
Wow.
With film shoots, you have to be up early anyway, but he was up a couple hours before the rest of us and out there running like 6 miles, before breakfast. He was dedicated.
Dedication. I was just going to say dedicated to hell.
And then
Russell in the chat said he's seen The Beast Within 7 times and enjoys it every time.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Excellent. And then Bibi Besh, who people will remember as Captain Kirk's wife in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. She played my mother in it. Just a marvelous actress, a sweet, wonderful woman. We became friends quite aside from the movie and got together for meals on a number of occasions. And I miss her dearly. She passed away way too young, cancer. And, I miss her to this day. Yeah.
Oh, great memories. Hey, JT, can't wait for the interview with the cast I saw last night. How are you? Doing good, Steven. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for joining us. So
last night.
I think he's referring to the cast of an upcoming slasher film, He Sees You When You're Sleeping. That I'm having on the director, the writer, and 3 of the actresses, which 2 of them include Caroline Williams from Texas 2, who I absolutely, that's my favorite in that series, and Lauren Marie Taylor from Friday Part 2, which I had her on last year, so she'll be making her return appearance.
I love that film too. But my favorite film in the series is the original TCM. From which Ed Neal became a great friend, and love Ed. He was the hitchhiker.
Yep.
And there's a great story connected to The Beast Within with how I first met Ed. I was doing publicity for The Beast Within in 2 cities. 2 states, not cities. Oklahoma, went all over Oklahoma, and Texas especially. Went to many, many different cities throughout Texas. And one of them was Austin, which is where the university is there, the University of Texas in Austin. And we had a press conference there, a lunch, kind of a banquet and a press conference. And met a very nice guy there who was the curator of their film department. And we had a nice talk about various things. And then he, I went my way, he went to a different direction. And somebody came up to me and said, do you know who you were just talking to? And I said, yeah, the curator of the film department, a really nice guy. He said, that's Ed Neal, who played the hitchhiker in the original Texas Chainsaw. And I went, you got to be kidding.
Oh, wow.
You're kidding me. Because he was nothing like, didn't look like it, didn't act like that. And I just refused to believe it. So a little bit later, I caught up to him in the elevator. We shared an elevator ride together, at which point I told him what I had been told. I said, somebody told me that you played the hitchhiker in Texas Chainsaw. And I can't believe it. I refuse to believe it. You're nothing whatsoever like that character. And so right in front of me, he transforms. He shrinks his body.
All right. That's great.
And he's talking like that. My brother, he makes head cheese. You like it? It's good. It's good.
Could just whip it back out, go right back into the role.
And when he did that, I'm like, my jaw. I pulled a Queen Latifah.
Yeah.
I pulled a Queen Latifah. I went, oh my God, it is you. It is
That's
you.
Funny.
And that was the beginning of a friendship which continues to this day.
Oh, that's great. I mean, it's amazing how he could just slip back into character, like on the drop of the hat like that.
He came from the Second City improv troupe, the famous
Second City, yeah.
Oh yeah, he was an expert in all kinds of improv, and as I told you earlier, I can say when it comes to improv that I wrote the book, because I actually did write the actor's book of improvisation, published by Penguin USA. It was in print for 10 years, and so yeah, hey, I wrote the book when it comes to improvisation, literally. I have one more. I have one more.
Afterwards, yeah, no, yeah. Afterwards, send me the link for the book on Amazon or something. I'll throw it in the
Sure.
description if anyone is interested
Yeah, of course.
in checking out the book.
Absolutely, absolutely. Here's I have one more. Hold on here. Yeah. Okay, one more little anecdote here regarding The Beast Within. This is a very recent one. I was just at well, there were two back-to-back conventions that I was at in, I think the same. Yeah, he was at Craig is the guy. He's from a company called Pallbearer Productions. They do the most fantastic T-shirts for horror films you will ever see. Just gorgeous. Great one of The Exorcist. Great one from Rosemary's Baby. Great classic Black Sabbath. Just great T-shirt.
Black Sabbath.
Oh, me too. One of my the Drop of Water. Seriously,
that is the scariest corpse ever in horror for me. No
argument. No. Argument at all. Scared the living you know what out of me. Anyway, so I'm at, in fact, the last three conventions that I was at, they had a setup there, Pallbearer, with all of their T-shirts and baseball caps and everything else. Well, the first one was Texas, Bastrop, Texas. That was the Cult Classic Movies Convention. Then the next one was in near Cincinnati, Ohio, and that was Horror Hound Weekend, which I think everybody has heard of and been to. Massive convention.
Yeah, Horror Hound.
Yeah, Horror Hound, and I've been there before too. It wasn't my first time at Horror Hound, but anyway, I'm standing there looking at Craig's whole setup, and suddenly I see a baseball cap, a very ugly color pattern. It was like orange camo, an orange and brown camouflage pattern, but it's got the logo on the front from The Beast Within, the exact logo, The Beast Within. But I thought, what in the world does this, the orange camo have to do with The Beast? It just didn't look right. So I said to him, it's really cool that you have a baseball cap here from The Beast Within, but the color thing, it's just the camo, it's just doesn't feel right to me. I said, if only I could get a red one that was red with the white letters on it, just like on the poster for the film. That would be absolutely fantastic. So Craig goes, and then he kind of bends down, turns away from me, bends down, and then stands up and he says, you mean like this?
That's awesome. That looks so cool. Let me see that. That's cool.
And I, of course, I freaked. I went, oh my God! It's like you're like Willy Wonka. You just magically can produce.
Yeah. Just pulled out the color and everything.
Yeah. That's and he said, and Craig said to me, "I want you to have this," which was so sweet. He gave it to me. He said, "I want you to have this." He says, "But you better bring it with you next time I see you." Well, that turned out to be about 3 weeks later in Cleveland, Ohio, at the Cinema Wasteland convention. So there he was again. And when I first saw him there, he says, "Did you bring the baseball cap?" I said, "You bet I did."
Nice. Yeah, that looks awesome.
There we go.
And that's another thing with the movie. The cover is so iconic, I feel, at this point. As we said, even though it's underrated still, I feel, today, and underseen, if you've seen the movie, you don't forget the cover and the artwork.
No, you're going to find this kind of surprising. I hated that poster when I first saw it. I was so disappointed. I don't know what I was expecting. I guess I was expecting something a lot more like that artwork, from the later,
something that shows off like you,
something like that, something more like that. What I had been expecting. So I was, originally I was very disappointed. Well, guess what? Over the years, it has become and I'm not joking, not just because it's my movie, No, I think it is one of the great posters. It's iconic.
Yep,
It's
absolutely.
become one of my favorite movie posters. Did you know that the young woman who used to be the editor of Rue Morgue magazine, she isn't now, she went on to become a talented filmmaker, but at that time she was the editor of Rue Morgue, and Jovanka Vukovic, she slept underneath that poster. It was above her bed, the poster from The Beast Within. So I was honored. A very attractive young woman. If I was any part of that,
No, it's definitely one of those posters that really sticks out. And yeah, this has just been a pleasure, man, talking with you. I know we said
ask me about my favorite
yeah,
horror.
that's what I was going to right here. And anyone who has any questions for Paul, just get him in the chat now. I don't want to take up too much of your time, even though I could talk horror forever. So we definitely have you on sometime again in the future. Do that watch thing of the Beast Within. That'll be that way we can have even more fun facts come out as the movie plays in real time.
Absolutely. Be careful what you wish for.
Oh yeah, that's why I don't wish for things unless I know damn well it's gonna be a fun time. Otherwise, I'll keep my mouth shut. Yeah, but favorite horror films more.
Oh, I have to tell one other little story. When I was at Horror Hound, I ran into, well, it was like old home week for me. Tom Atkins was there. He and I co-starred together in that movie, A Death in Canaan, that I told you about, directed by Tony Richardson. He played the bad cop. I'm a young man who's accused of the murder of my mother. I'm actually innocent, but the police brainwashed me into believing that I committed the murder. It was a true story. It was an unbelievable.
That sounds so familiar. I might have seen that years ago, and just
it was powerful. It was very powerful, and he was great in it. And, he was one of the two bad cops, and but anyway, so it was great to see Tom again, and it was just as I said, old home week, and I ran into Robert Englund. He and I did a TV show together. Not a wonderful one, but it was, but we did this TV thing together. And great guy, so much fun to work with. And anyway, we're just shooting the breeze in the lobby of the hotel. We wound up talking for an hour and a half. And later, during that convention, people were coming up to me. For example, Heather Langenkamp comes up to me and says, "Hey, Paul, I got to tell you, Robert has been, he's just over, he's telling everybody that the conversation that he has had with anybody in 10 years.
Wow, that's one honor, man.
And about 3 different people came Robert. Robert keeps talking about this great, amazing conversation. Well, it takes two to tango, right? Conversationally. And,
but still, what a great honor.
It was like a great tennis match, because I'm into theater. I'm into all the same references that I had. He immediately picked up the ball and, shot it back and forth. And it was just so much fun. He's a great guy. Yeah.
Great. Favorite. I was gonna say my favorite is The Thing by John Carpenter.
Well, you can't go wrong with that.
Halloween, Mario Bava's Kill Baby Kill, At Least in the Devil, Argento's Opera, Tenebrae, Fulci's City of the Living Dead, The Beyond, The Exorcist. I mean, you can go on, and Day of the Dead, Evil Dead 2. Of course. Those probably round up around my top 10 or so. I'm probably forgetting them, some like I always do. But what would be yours?
Well, now I have lots of favorites in many different.
That's how I am. It's so hard to narrow everything down.
I can say, all right, the most disturbing horror film I've ever seen. I can say that most disturbing, but disturbing in a excellent, powerful way, an artistic way. I'm not talking about exploitation here.
Yeah,
deeply disturbing but brilliant. And that is the original French version, the only version. It never should have been remade. The original Martyrs.
Yeah, that is one disturbing film, and it is an excellent film. That movie's a masterpiece.
I showed that movie to my wife, Christine, and she said at the end of the film, I'm kind of surprised I got her to actually watch
to the end, right?
But she did. She did. Right. Boy, she, got to give her credit. She did. And And she turns to me at the end of the movie and she said, I'm really glad you showed me that film because I think it's a work of art, but I never want to see that film again.
I mean, that's the reaction it does evoke. I mean,
Um,
that's the best type of art is whether it's a
and
positive or negative emotion, if it can
and I,
pull
and I,
you.
and I have to say, I had a unique experience with that movie because it's the only horror movie, deeply disturbing kind of horror movie that actually made me break down crying.
Oh, what that woman goes through.
What she goes through, I actually lost it at that point. I broke down and I began sobbing. I mean, it was so powerfully done. It
Oh
just,
yeah, it really once you see that movie for the first time, you never forget Martyrs, and that's how I knew. As soon as you said that it shouldn't have gotten a remake, I said, yeah, he's going with Martyrs because I was thinking of Inside also. And once you said French, because Inside's a great one
yeah,
too.
yeah.
But
Oh no, that's
the
excellent.
remake's not great, but it's watchable. But like the Martyrs remake is awful in my opinion.
Terrible.
So as soon as you said that, I said, all right, he's going with Martyrs.
So that's one type. Okay, that's the well, I guess the other film I don't really consider a horror movie. It's more of it's actually a historical film, but a true story. But the other movie that's deeply disturbing that I like just as much and is, brilliant directorially and in terms of the acting and the same thing as how great the acting was in Martyr. The famous Ken Russell film, The Devils.
That's a great one too.
Great movie. Great movie. That's so powerful.
I haven't seen that in a bit. I got to throw that on the watch list. I have so many movies now from starting this channel that just hearing ones that I haven't seen in years, or just ones that I just slipped through the cracks. I got like 3-4 different lists on different devices and stuff. Every time I hear something, it's added to it.
Now I have to mention a couple others. The Exorcist, absolutely. I saw that the day it came out. I was like 14, 15 years old. I'll never forget it. I was pulverized by that film. And this was knowing a lot of stuff about it before going into it, because I said I was already friends with Dick Smith. He had provided me with a stack of wonderful behind-the-scenes photos of his effects, the makeup work. I mean, I already knew what a lot of this stuff looked like, but it's one thing to see black and white, behind-the-scenes photos of makeup being done, and to see that film, right? Yeah. Well, I was absolutely blown away. But I saw it with my brother, who is 5 years older than I, and big strapping guy, football player, right? Nothing's going to scare him, right? Well, about 3/4 of the way through that movie, he was sunk down so low in his seat with his hand like this. He's going like, "Oh my God, how much more is there going to be of that? I can't deal with it." It's like,
like that was the film that, you hear that, you've heard that many times since then, of people, passing out in theaters and, just getting sick and everything, walking out. That was the movie that started that.
It was. You know who I met in the lobby of the theater the first time I saw it? This was at the theater where it opened in Westwood, famously the National Theater. It's not there anymore. In fact, it had the window from Reagan's bedroom with the blowing drapes.
Oh wow!
With the light, they had the window on the side of the theater with a fan inside of it to make the drapes blow.
Make that effect. That's awesome.
Yeah, which was fabulous. And talk about a blockbuster. The lines were literally all the way around the block, literally all the way around. They had to set up sawhorses to keep people in order. They were giving out coffee to people throughout the night because people were queuing all night to be able to see the first show the next day. I mean, it was crazy. So, but I saw the second show of the day. It was like 2:00 in the afternoon. And when I came out, I had this wonderful talk with, of all people, would you believe, Pat Boone?
Oh wow!
Pat
so you ran into him in the lobby.
Yeah, Pat Boone, and he loved the film. I mean, he got it. He got the whole point of the movie, that it was actually a story about about faith, and the serious aspects of it. He didn't just come away reacting to the visceral aspect of it. He really got the deeper levels of it. And so we had this wonderful talk about that together, and so that was great. So anyway, The Exorcist. So and but interestingly, The Exorcist is, and this leads right into the other film I'm about to mention. Well, two other movies that are kind of similar. The Exorcist, when you see it for the first time, if you see it, if you had seen it earlier on in time, now there's been too much things making fun of it. There's been parodies.
Oh yeah, I say the same with Psycho too. Like
Same with
people
Psycho.
who haven't seen Psycho, they know the ending of Psycho just because
Well,
it's
exactly.
so in the lexicon of popular culture.
Exactly. By the way, I recreated as an actor, frame for frame, the shower scene from Psycho. Exactly.
72 shots, right? 72 shots.
That's right. We did. Every shot was exactly right. Everything, except my character. This was in an award-winning short film that I play the lead in. That became an internet phenomenon. First, it won about 20 major film festival awards all over the world, including the Fantasia Festival in Montreal. It won Best Short Film. Rue Morgue magazine gave it there. They do film awards each year. I think they call them the Chainsaw Awards.
The Chainsaw Awards. Golden Chainsaw, yeah.
That's it. They gave the best short film that year to the movie I'm talking about that I play the lead in. And it's a horror film. It's a dark horror comedy, action, adventure, supernatural. It's a mixture of genres. The title, you ready for this? The Horribly Slow Murderer with the inefficient weapon.
I saw that when I was reading earlier. I said that is a great fucking title.
The Spoon Killer. It's about he attacks me. It's about a demon. Yeah. A demon who follows me all over the world, attacking me with a teaspoon, hitting me thousands of times. It's the world's slowest murder.
Now I know, because once I read that title, I said that's a great title, and then I said I wonder what the terrible weapon is. The insufficient weapon. So it's
written and directed by a very talented writer-director named Richard Gale, and he did a film just before that, which is the thing that made me want to work with him. He did another short horror film, which won, again, a slew of awards all over, festivals everywhere, a movie called Criticized, about an insane horror film director who gets ripped apart by this particular critic. And he winds up kidnapping that critic and taking the critic home and tying him up, actually imprisoning him in a bathtub. And then he proceeds to horrifically torture him systematically, putting him through the kind of hell that he felt that he had been put through by this guy's review.
Interesting.
And it's very darkly funny, but not like Horribly Slow Murderer is out and out. It's a black comedy, and everybody knows it's a comedy. It's handled very seriously, but it's a ludicrous idea. But it's done very seriously. Whereas Criticized, Criticized is a kind of a white knuckle experience, and it does give you a feeling of dread. It's not. There are a lot of people who would not be able to handle Criticized, but it's on YouTube, same as Horribly Slow Murderer. So people can just look up Horribly Slow or Horribly Slow Murderer. The title, it'll come right up. And same thing, Criticized. Just remember Criticized. Or just look up Richard Gale films on there. Now, what happened was, we got about over 20 festival awards. Then we put it on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Well, it just exploded on YouTube, became this huge viral phenomenon. And that original short, starring yours truly as Jack Cucciaio, that's the last name is Italian for spoon, by the way.
Okay, what you use, that's funny.
Italian for spoon.
Clever.
Cucciaio. Anyway, what was I saying?
You were talking about the two shorts on YouTube.
The
short and the film on YouTube you can find.
Yeah. So Criticized, I don't even think Criticized, that hadn't even made it to YouTube yet. I think in fact Horribly Slow Murder made it to YouTube before Criticized did, even though they were made in the other order. But it's because I saw Criticized that I contacted Richard Gale and I said, I need to work with you, man. You're amazing. So we wound up having coffee together. And after that Starbucks meeting we had, I got a call from him about a week later saying, how would you like to? He gives me this insane pitch for this one of the craziest ideas I'd ever heard of, and I said, I'm your guy. I do this. I'm willing to be hit with a spoon hundreds of times. I'm there.
That's great. I'm definitely going to be checking that out and letting you know soon what I think
You
about
need
it.
to. You need to. But here's the thing: when it was put on YouTube,
Exploded, right?
you know how many hits that has now on YouTube?
What?
How many views? 37 million.
Damn. Yeah, that's something. I mean, it's amazing what you can do.
Having your own channel, you know about views and
yeah, absolutely.
So
I mean,
37 million.
That's one hell of a takeoff.
Well, it is, and in fact, when Tom Holland at a convention heard that from me, that my thing had 37 million views.
Yeah.
He became kind of apoplectic, and he turns to his son, who accompanies him on a lot of his convention appearances. He helps his dad with setting things up and all that.
Yeah.
And he grabs a hold of his son. And he says, "How the hell does a short film about a spoon, a guy getting hit with a spoon? How can it get 37 million? What about blah blah blah? What about my this and what about that? How come our website? How does he get 37?
Yeah. Like, the algorithm is a fucking mystery on YouTube.
Isn't
We're
it?
all still trying to figure it out. Yeah.
There's a list. There's a
Total
list there's a list on Internet Movie Database of the best or the highest rated, whatever the not highest rated. It's just in order of popularity. There's a list
of popularity scale.
Short horror films. There's a whole list, a very long list of short horror movies. There's about 1,500 movies or so on this list. It goes on and on. Wow. Well, the Horribly Slow Murderer for a long time was in the top 3. It was number 1 at one point. It was number 3, and then it was number 2, and then it was number 1. We were in the top 3 or 4 for forever. I don't know if it still is, because I haven't looked in recent for the last couple of years. I haven't even looked. Yeah. It used to be for a long time. That was for like 10 years. It was in the top 3 best.
No, that's great, and I'm definitely checking that out probably this weekend. So I'll be messaging you, letting you know my thoughts on that one. Because how do you not with the name and the premise alone?
The reason we got onto that was Psycho, the shower scene, because my character in the Horribly Slow Murder at one point, the demon, by the way, is called the Ginosaji. And he looks like an evil mime in a black hoodie with a whitish face and dark circles around the eyes and black lips, and he's very cadaverous. He's like a cross between Marcel Marceau and that famous painting, The Scream.
Yep.
He's like a cross between, and he attacks me. He attacks me in the shower with a spoon, and it becomes the exact shower scene. Every shot, it's got the Bernard Herrmann music. Every time the shot, if you put it next to the actual one, you'll see
you'll see the exact time shots and everything throughout. That's
except
great.
Except at the end, when you see Janet Leigh's hand going down the tile, going down the tile of the thing.
Yeah,
you hear that music going bum 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 as the hand is singing down. It's just like that, except that periodically a spoon comes into the shot and it keeps hitting my hand.
That's great. Yeah, guys, definitely check out that short for sure.
Now, lastly, this is what leads into that, because we were talking about Psycho. Is movies that that you see them at the time really powerful and scary. You see them years later, they may not be, because they become cultural touchstones. They're too familiar. That stuff is just too familiar. It can't be this scary anymore. The Exorcist will never be able to frighten people unless someone has seen nothing from it. They don't know anything about it. Then they could still get scared.
Exactly. And which is so
hard
rare.
to do. Yeah.
Same with Psycho.
Oh, exactly.
It's hard to go through life without ever encountering a reference to Psycho and the twist.
There is only one movie, JT, one that affects me in such a way that, and it's an older film, it's black and white, that affects me in such a way that it is the only movie, the only one that I will, to this day, that I will not watch alone at night.
Interesting.
Okay.
Which one?
The original film, The Haunting, directed by Robert Wise.
Okay. Yep. I don't. I've seen it years and years ago.
It gets my personal vote for the most frightening movie ever made. Now, when I say frightening, there's all kinds of frightening. I don't mean brutal. I don't mean murders. I don't mean things jumping.
Psychological.
Ghastly makeup effects. I mean purely psychological. Because that movie,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a haunted house, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't ever see a ghost in the entire movie. You certainly hear things that are really disturbing. You see people affected by things in very disturbing ways. You see a couple people get killed or die because of supernatural forces in the house.
It leaves it up to the imagination.
It leaves it up to the imagination. And there's only one scene where you unambiguously see a supernatural occurrence, where you see this door. They're all in this room together, the kind of the parlor downstairs, and this huge door slams shut by itself. And then the door, this heavy oak door, which is huge, starts to bend inward, and it looks like it's breathing, and you hear the creaking of the wood. So
I remember that scene.
So whatever's on the other side of that door, man, it's something big and very powerful.
Yeah.
Because this is,
and probably really pissed.
Yeah, and really pissed. This door is bulging in, and what happens? What the hell is on the other side of that? So throughout the movie, there are things like that where you hear things, and down at the end of a hallway, you see things written on a wall, and you don't know how it was written. Is it chalk? No, it's something like chalk, but these huge letters. Yeah. I mean, it's weird stuff, and it's because of the performances. Julie Harris is brilliant in it. So is Richard Johnson, Claire Bloom. It's got a great cast. Russ Tamblyn, wonderful in it. And my God, the cinematography, the house itself. I've been to the house. It's in England. In the movie, awesome. In the movie, it takes place here in the U.S. It takes place in New England, in the state of, I think, Maine. But the house itself, the real house they shot it in and around, was in near Stratford-on-Avon, where Shakespeare was born in England. Okay. And the house in the movie, it is so intimidating looking. Nobody would want to spend a night in that house the way it looks in the movie. If you said you're going to spend a night,
like a character of its on its own.
It's like exactly right, JT. It's a character on its own. Yeah. It becomes a very much a character, and it's kind of alive. It has that sort of aspect to it. And
very similar to The Shining with the Overlook. There's a few movies,
The Shining, Bird Offering,
those classic locations that take on their own their own character.
Another great subtle film, the Innocents, based on Turn of the Screw with Deborah Carr, the two children, the two kids. Mm-hmm. And one of those two kids grew up to be in another one of my favorite haunted house movies. She's in two of my favorite haunted house movies. The one I just mentioned, The Innocents. And then as a grown woman, she co-starred in The Legend of Hell House, which I also like.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great one too.
Although anybody who loves that movie, and I do, but you need to read the book. If you read the original novel, and the screenplay was by the guy that wrote the novel, Richard Matheson, the late, great Richard Matheson. But if you think that film is scary, just read the book. The book will pulverize you. It's way more... Oh, and by the way, I created on this online community called Second Life, myself and a team of builders who worked with me, computer programmers and builders. We created the house from Richard Matheson's book, Hell House, the Velasco house. I used visual elements from the movie in it. I used stuff from The Haunting in terms of the soundtrack, because that's one of the scariest soundtracks I've ever heard. I used some of that. But it's the book. It's based on the book, and it's very much an adults only experience, and it's an interactive experience. This house, it takes about 12 hours to see it all. That's how complicated it is. There's that many rooms. It's like a video. It's like exploring in a video game, and you can open. Like if you see a drawer, sometimes you can open it and look at the papers inside the drawer. You'll find all kinds of clues about the history of the house, and all these things that are in the book and in the movie happen in that house. There's a lot of special effects, and it has become the most popular.
Bring it to life like that.
Yeah, and it's become the most popular haunted attraction in all of Second Life. And there are many, many haunted attractions in Second Life, and it's the most popular one as far as anything that's for adults. And I specify adults because people have to know what they're getting into here. I don't mean it's just for adults in terms of how scary it is, which it is, but like the book that it was based on, like Matheson's novel, it is very sexually explicit.
Okay.
I mean, X-rated explicit.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
because his book was X-rated explicit. I wanted to actually do the novel, what it would be like if somebody were to actually make a movie of that book, which you couldn't unless it was, the triple X. But anyway, so yeah.
Stacy's asking, is it still up on Second Life?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And yeah, so
Cool.
you just have to get yourself an avatar and learn how to navigate. If you're not already part of Second Life, there's a very short learning curve involved, and it doesn't cost anything. I don't charge any rent. In fact, Richard Matheson himself put me in touch with his attorney, his lawyer, who gave me exactly the language that I needed to have to put on my attraction so that I would not get sued by 20th Century Fox, who owns the rights to the film. Yes.
Okay.
And the book. They own the book.
Nice little loophole there.
So he helped me. And I've never had a problem.
That's great.
I also don't, I don't charge an admission or anything. So, people can people can put in little, contributions if they want, but I don't ask, donations, but I don't ask for anything. And so anyway, there's that. And I guess that covers the whole shebang. There's many.
I was gonna say, you want to end on this non-horror question here from another Russell, good friend. Sure. Hey JT, could you ask Paul what it was like doing the Quincy episode on Tourette's?
Oh boy,
we'll close with that.
I'm very proud of that. That's one of the two things that I've done that I'm probably the proudest of. The other being A Death in Canaan. And interestingly, one night I was walking through Westwood Village, and Sean Penn comes up to me and says, "Excuse me, you're Paul Clemens, aren't you?" And I said, yes, I am. And he said, "I have to tell you, you gave two of the finest performances I've ever seen. I've never forgotten them. One was A Death in Canaan, and the other was the Quincy episode about Tourette's syndrome that you did." Wow. And, I was,
of course.
I was pleased.
I mean, you got Sean Penn to come up to you. It's just great to hear.
Yeah, that wasn't too shabby. And interestingly, right after that, he actually got in touch with me. He called me and he wanted to do a play with me that he would co-star in and direct at what was then called the Westwood Playhouse. It's now called the Geffen Theater. And it was a prison play called Fortune in Men's Eyes, which was like done in the late 60s originally. He wanted to do a revival of it, and this prison play, and I would have been in it with him. But what happened was he lost all the funding. It just fell through the budget.
Oh, really?
That happened.
So it's always unfortunate when it happens.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's been great just to hear all the great little things that you've done along the way, besides the acting, besides that.
But as I say, I was very
make
proud.
These little projects.
Yeah.
To make these projects and get praise from a lot of just legendary actors, right?
Oh yeah. But here's what I was particularly But here's what I was particularly proud of about the Quincy, which was called Seldom Silent, Never Heard. And it was written by a very talented writer named Sam Egan, and kind of really produced by Jack Klugman, because he didn't just play Quincy. He was one of the producers. He had a lot of power on the show, and wonderful to work with. And miss him too. Everybody's gone now. But not everyone, fortunately. But but at any rate, that the Quincy, I worked with a young man who sadly is also no longer with us. A great young man who had Tourette's syndrome. He actually had Tourette's, and he was my technical advisor on it. So I was able to work with him and get the muscular spasms and tics down, By the way, do you know who else? There's a very famous person who most people don't realize has Tourette's. Billie Eilish.
Uh,
Billie Eilish.
oh, really? I
Billie
didn't know that.
Look up Billie Eilish and Tourette's on YouTube.
Interesting.
She's spoken about it quite openly in many interviews, several interviews. She talks about it. Yeah, and you can see she has the little tics. You can see the spasms. Yeah. So yeah, and so anyway, two things about that were just a matter of tremendous pride to me. One was being told by this husband and wife couple. They came up to me and told me that they had been able to diagnose their child's Tourette syndrome by seeing my performance in the Quincy. Before that, they didn't know what was wrong with the kid. They had no clue.
Seeing that brought attention. They realized this is what my kid has. Oh, that's great.
That was it. And it turned out the kid did indeed have Tourette's. And he said it was entirely because of seeing my performance that they made them realize what was the matter. And they finally got help for their kid. Now, one of the main things in that episode that it was about was something called the Orphan Drug Bill, which was a bill before Congress that had not been signed at the time we did the episode. And and what that bill would do would be to cut through all the red tape that is involved in developing a drug that has a very low user population, where there's just not that many people that have that illness. So it's not profitable for a major drug company to spend all the money that it takes to develop a new drug if you only have a rather small clientele, so to speak.
I was actually just talking about this with somebody the other day about the more rare something is, a disorder or condition and stuff, the less funding of research and stuff goes into
That's it. Well, the Orphan Drug Bill. That's what this is about. Well, at the end of that episode, my character is speaking in a congressional hearing in a big room with all these seats, and these seats were arranged to go all the way down. That it was big. There was, we must have had 300 extras, and then all the people playing the senators, and it was quite a setup. And that was my final scene in the episode. And it was a monologue. It was just a killer monologue. It was so beautifully written, and I was proud to be able to do this. And that's the other thing. Like A Death in Canaan, I got so much work because of that episode of Quincy. In fact, because of that final scene that I did, and you can see that final scene. I'll send you a link to it. That's on YouTube.
Okay, yeah, definitely, yeah.
That whole final scene. Stanley Kubrick wound up seeing that. Because he was doing auditions at the time for Full Metal Jacket. And the way people audition for that movie, actors audition for that movie, was in a very unique way. They didn't meet with him. They were to record a monologue on video and then send it to his casting people. There was an address to mail it to in England.
Yeah, that's an interesting way.
So he wound up getting, thousands of tapes of actors doing scenes.
Well, just with his name.
Well, Kubrick, you can imagine, it was much too busy a guy to sit down and watch thousands of tapes by some actors who might not be able to act, possibly. And his people did not want him to waste his time. He paid a staff of people to watch all of these tapes. Well, one of them was instead of me doing a scene, I knew there's no way I could come up with a monologue sitting in front of my camera, my webcam, that could be better than my monologue at the end because it's a 3-minute long scene. It's just me. So beautifully photographed, So I put my agent, put it in a package, sent that scene to Kubrick, and they wound up getting a phone call from Stanley Kubrick's brother-in-law, Jan Harlan, whose name you will see on a lot of the Kubrick films. He was the co-producer with Kubrick on The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, etc. And Jan Harlan. And he told my agent that there were 3 actors under consideration at that point for the role. And the role was going to be, by the way, not Matthew Modine's part. It was going to be Vincent D'Onofrio's role.
Oh, wow. Okay. Great actor.
Not Private Joker, Gomer Pyle. Now, they went a completely different way than me physically. I mean, I'm average height. I'm 5'10.5". He's way taller than me. He's built like a bull. He's built like a bear. He's this huge guy. And then on top of that, he had to put on like 60 pounds. And, so I'm glad I didn't have to do that. But even though later I did go through a period during those Spoon movies that I did where I'm a lot heavier. I am right now probably, I think, 65 pounds lighter than I was when I did the Spoon films. So when you see me in that, you see I have a heavier guy. But now I've taken all that weight off. But Full Metal Jacket, I mean, it was between me, Vincent D'Onofrio, and one other actor. I don't know who the third actor was. I never found out. But I'm going, oh my God. So as it happens, obviously they went with Vincent D'Onofrio. But at least I can say that one of my three favorite film, or one of my top five, I guess, favorite film directors in the whole world, along with Ingmar Bergman and Kurosawa and David Lynch and Hitchcock, that one of my five favorite directors thought enough of my work that I would get close to getting a role like that. Yeah. So just hearing that, I could die happy. And lastly, here's a little story about David Lynch and Eraserhead, Stanley Kubrick. Those come together in a very interesting way you would never expect.
He showed Eraserhead. This I know. He showed it.
That story. Well, let me tell it to your listeners.
Oh yeah, go right ahead. Yeah, great story.
David Lynch at the time was directing The Elephant Man at it was either Elstree or Pinewood, one of those studios. Anyway, but it's where Kubrick had worked. It's where he had done The Shining, and Lynch had not met Kubrick. But he was working on his crew were a couple guys who had worked with Kubrick previously, probably I assume on The Shining, and maybe on Barry Lyndon as well. I don't know, but anyway, I do know that these guys from his crew were invited one night because they'd become friends with Kubrick and his family. They were invited to Kubrick's home for dinner, and they went there. And after dinner, Kubrick said to these two crew guys from, at that time, The Elephant Man, was what they were working on. And he said, would you like to see my favorite film?
Yep.
And they went, well, yeah, of course. He showed them Eraserhead.
Yep. And
he once was asked, Kubrick was asked apparently at one time, is there any movie that you wish you had made that you didn't? There's any movie you wish you had made? And he said, yes, Eraserhead. Yeah. Now, I know he felt the same way about All That Jazz, which I thought also was stunning, a brilliant movie. I saw it 5 or 6 times when that came out in the theater. There is, truly, there's no other movie like Eraserhead. It's a work of cinematic genius. Some people don't get it, or it's not their cup of tea.
I did like an hour-long breakdown on it. I'll send you that if you'd.
Interesting.
Yeah, an hour long. It's at like 3 a.m. in the morning too, which is never a good idea.
No,
dissecting at 3 a.m.
I saw it at I got out of that movie at like 2 o'clock in the morning at the New Art Theater. It was the midnight movie there when it had, when not that many people had seen it. It was before The Elephant Man. And I'm walking home, still in this weird, I couldn't shake it. I felt like I was trapped in a bad dream that I couldn't wake up from, but it stuck with me in a way.
That's the feel it gives me too.
It haunts you. It's something really, it's funny too. It's also very funny at times, but in a very weird way. But I once took a girlfriend years ago to see Eraserhead. Not a great necessarily best movie.
That's a gamble. Having somebody see that one.
So I take her to see Eraserhead, and I'll never forget. We walk out of the movie theater, and we're standing there in front of the theater. We're just exiting the theater, and she turns to me. Now we're alone. There's no one around, and she turns to me, fixes me with this weird look, and she says, "What the fuck was that?"
That's most people's first reactions. I mean, that's a movie that you got to watch many, many times to start picking up on so
Yeah,
much of the
and
symbolism
like,
in there, and just
and like
so
all
much
of
stuff
Lynch's,
that
and like
connects,
most,
like all of, yeah, like exactly, like all of Lynch.
and like most of Lynch's films, I have seen it many, many times. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Just want this has been such a blast, Paul, having you on and just hearing all these great stories. So, just want to
thank
thank you so much for coming on, and everybody in the chat. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for talking horror as always. And what do we
you.
got coming up? We got All Hallows Eve from Damien Leone, the
Oh,
Terrifier guy.
love that movie. Yeah. Oh yeah.
We're doing a watch along of that on Friday night. Then we
Wasn't
have
that,
Jeff.
wait, All Hallows Eve, wasn't that the one where we first meet Art the Clown? Was that
Yeah,
the first?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the anthology
Yeah, and
one.
it's a different actor in that one in the early.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that wasn't
not
David.
the same
I
guy.
always forget the guy's name because I just did a video on Terrifier 3 the other day,
Yeah.
and I mentioned all the previous films. I never can remember the guy's name who plays it in All Hallows Eve, but I mean
I have to
David
say,
Howard Gordon,
I mean,
excellent.
it's not entirely my usual cup of tea, those films, but I
Yeah,
believe me, I watched them. I mean, if I hear something is like so disturbing or so extreme or
yeah,
whatever,
I'm the same.
I
I gotta
gotta
check
see
it
it.
out.
I gotta
Yeah,
see
you
it.
got it.
That's how I felt about a Serbian film. I
Yep,
had to
I've
see it.
seen. Yep, I did a
Had
video
to
on
see
that
it.
too. Right.
And the thing is, with a Serbian film, again, it would have been like an exploitation movie if it wasn't so well directed and so well
I
acted.
say the same thing. Is that you would think with the content and stuff, and just people would
Exactly.
avoid the movie just from it, that you would think it's a sleazy made
Yep.
film and stuff. And it's a very competently directed,
More
edited,
so.
very well made movie. It's just
But
very fucked up in the content.
what scene? First of all, I knew about the scene before I saw it, and I was braced for
Yeah,
it, so it
the
didn't come out
baby.
of nowhere. The baby.
Yeah, yeah,
Scene
that's
that
pushing
everybody
the
talks
line.
about. That scene, I have to say, people will be horrified when I say this. That scene didn't really bother me.
They don't. It's
You
a
know
little
why?
over the. It's so over the top that
Yeah,
I
it
don't
is.
think
That
it's
it
fair.
is. That's part of it. So over the top. But no, the other thing was, if you're going to do something like that, if you're going to go that far, if you are really going to go there, if you're really going
Yeah,
to push that envelope, you'd better make it 100% believable.
yeah,
That
yeah.
it
I
was a
know.
rubber doll. It was just a
I
piece of
know.
it didn't
It
move.
would it felt like a shock
It
just to
it,
have a
it,
shock,
it,
but not
it,
putting
it looked fake. It was just
yeah,
like a
exactly, not
rubber
putting any
bean doll.
creativity behind it.
And I thought here, and they're putting in sound effects. The mouth isn't moving. Clearly, the thing is not
Yeah.
alive. And I'm like, okay, you went there, and yet you didn't. You went to
Yep.
that point, and yet you didn't go the extra mile or extra whatever 12 feet or whatever. You
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
go the extra inch, whatever, to
Exactly.
make it believable, which it wasn't. The rest of the movie was. The rest of the film was,
Oh,
but that.
yeah.
So here I'm all braced
I
for
think
this.
they just wanted us something to throw in, like a shock like that, but just
Yeah.
didn't commit to the creativity that they could have done with it. I mean, what can you do it? I mean, the sick minds who wrote the movie, I guess, but something more believable. Because yeah, it's whenever people point that out in that movie,
You,
they
you
always
know,
say the
you
same
know, you
thing.
know who I,
That babe,
you know,
it looks so fake.
you know who I've just gotten to know, who is like the nicest guy, and he's someone who, when I first saw the films he made, I thought this guy must be a depraved mother, you know what? And
Yeah.
I thought this guy must be, I don't know what are there language restrictions on?
Oh no, not at all. Not
Okay,
not on here.
this guy has got
You
to
can
be
say
one.
whatever you want.
Thank you. I thought this guy has got to be one sick motherfucker.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And this was the guy who wrote and directed and starred in the August Underground series.
That's right. Yeah, I never cared for those movies.
Well, they're not my cup of tea, but
Yeah.
I have to say, Fred Vogel, the guy who wrote and directed them and is in them, is the nicest guy in the world. I mean,
Yeah.
he's nothing at all like what I thought.
Oh
This
yeah.
guy, this really nice, warm, very intelligent, pleasant, nice guy. This is the guy that does those ghastly,
It's
grungy.
always that. I mean, that's always how it turns out being. I guess I mean, just look at I never got to meet. I never talked with Damien Leone personally and David Howard Thornton, but
I'm sure he's a
look
sweetheart.
at that. Yeah, exactly. And it's
Yeah.
like, but look at the crazy shit that they put
Mo-
out.
Not
It doesn't
100% of
mean
the time.
anything.
Not 100% of the time, but most of the time, a lot of the baddest ass actors, who played the nastiest villains in movie history, almost inevitably you meet them and they're the nicest guys.
Oh,
They
yeah.
play the worst people, and they turn out to be the nicest people. One great example of that was R.G. Armstrong from The Beast Within. It played my doctor.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that thing? I guess it was the movie Stay Hungry with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, yeah, that sounds familiar.
In that movie, there is a fight scene between, I think it's a young Jeff Bridges, and he's in a gym, and there's this guy who's hyped up on meth or some damn combination of drugs, played by R.G. Armstrong, this crazy, high on drugs guy who is trying to kill him with all the equipment that you would find in a gym. Barbells, throwing weights at him and doing all. I mean, it's a very frightening fight scene, really scary. And boy, he commits to it 100%. RG is just scary as fuck. But working with him on The Beast Within, this man, and you can only be a tough guy and get away with this. He would sit there on the set doing his hobby, which was, you ready? Crocheting.
Yeah.
With crocheting needles.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Crocheting, right? He's crocheting, and he would talk about his spice garden at home and how he loved his spice garden, and so gardening.
Yeah, just stuff you would not expect.
Not expect in a million years. Not from R.G. Armstrong, one of the baddest dudes. We worked with the entire stock. We had basically in The Beast Within, Sam Peckinpah's entire stock company.
No.
These guys had all been, and L.Q. Jones. Oh God, L.Q. told me the funniest stories about working with Peckinpah. Unbelievable stories of sex and drugs and rock and roll. Well, not rock and roll, sex and drugs. Yeah, unbelievable. Bowls of cocaine. He was sitting there. He was sitting there. He was being interviewed. Peckinpah was being interviewed, or was going to be interviewed. And some press person came in, and he was in his hotel, stark naked, lying on the bed with two naked babes right beside him, a big bowl of cocaine on the table, and he's like, "Hey, come on in." And the guy's like, I don't think this is the right time." And the guy excused himself, and left. I mean,
I'm heading out. I got to be somewhere.
Exactly. Well, that was how crazy Peckinpah was, and he had a thing where he was often so intoxicated with alcohol that he would forget that he had fired someone. He'd get very angry easily, and he would fire someone, and not the actors. He couldn't afford to do that because they're in. He already shot a lot of footage.
Yeah, exactly.
But he would fire crew. He would fire crew members, like that on the drop of a hat. He would fire the crew member, and what he would say. He'd always say the same thing. He'd say, "You're on the bus," which meant you're fired. There was a bus that was sitting there just specifically to take fired crew members back to the hotel to get their stuff and take them to the airport. That was what the drive. But here's the thing: his memory, because he was so addled with alcohol, he'd say to someone, "You're on the bus," but about an hour later, he wouldn't remember what he had done.
So that they get out of it.
So
they have a job still for a bit.
And the driver was in on it. The guy who drove the van or the bus, he was in on it. And they would just sit and play cards and laugh and joke for a while. And he'd look at his watch, the driver, and he'd go, "Oh, I guess you can go back now. It's been about an hour and a half." He won't remember. And he didn't. He never did. He'd go back.
That's too funny. But again, man, thank you so much. Everybody in the chat, thanks for hanging out. And, like this, share it out just so Paul's awesome stories and stuff can be heard by more people, and this movie can be watched by more people, because The Beast Within still needs to be seen by more horror fans.
Please,
for sure.
But
JT, go ahead. Yeah,
I have the crew T-shirt from The Exorcist that the whole crew wore.
Wow.
I have a.
You got to send me a picture of that.
Yeah, I will. It was given to me by a guy who had worked on the film and was the first AD on a movie I did. By the director who did produce Coming Home and a lot of other good movies. Oh, Midnight Cowboy. Hello. And I also have the book, the exact book of exorcism, right from the movie that they're reading, that with the red text, the black text, because that's not the Bible. That is the Roman ritual of exorcism. Hard to get. That's a very different kettle of fish. It's hard to find that. I have the exact one that was used in the movie. Wow. I mean, it wasn't the one they filmed, but it was
that exact copy and everything.
It was that year, it was 1963 publication. I've got that, and I also have the exact crucifix from the infamous
Oh, great.
crucifix scene. The exact, again, not the one that was used in, but it's the same company, it's the same make, it's the same size from the same time period. So, yeah, I love collecting props like that you can actually get.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
Got the axe from The Shining. That's the
Oh,
actual one that, it's the same company that made them for Kubrick. So
that's awesome.
anyway, we could go on and on and on.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely can. I mean, that's all we do is talk car and not stop every day here. But again, hang on for 1 second if I end the live, and
Sure.
I'll thank you again. But everybody watching, everybody in the future, thanks so much. This is Paul Clemens, everybody. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, JT.